What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another podcast episode here at It Resolves. My name is Kevin.
My name is Will. Welcome in, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, watching, or listening. Do it however you're doing it, where you're doing it.
There it is.
Yeah. Intro.
Yeah, check.
Take
So we are going to be kind of having a general discussion on Kaladesh Remastered, as it did drop this past week, I believe on Thursday. We've played a little bit of it. We've talked about some of the cards, and we wanted to do that and have an open discussion with you guys. And I think there's a lot to talk about here. But before we jump in, a couple things. One, if you would like to pick up any kind of merch, you can do so. Type !merch in the chat. That link will take you right to our little merch store. You can pick up whatever you would like there. Second, if you're not already following and you stumble upon this stream, if you follow, you are automatically entered to win a Commander Legends booster box on the 28th of November. We are giving away a free one to one lucky Twitch follower. Subscribers actually get double entry, so they actually get 2 entries. So if you would like to subscribe, I get that costs money. We don't want to make you guys do that, but as an extra, maybe little incentive, so to speak, you can certainly do so. So either way, we'd really appreciate it, and we certainly thank you guys for joining. Minecraft Dude, welcome. So glad you could be here today. Let's go ahead. Hey, Ace, welcome. All right, let's go ahead and do our random card of the day. Are you ready, Will?
I'm super ready.
Let's do this. 3, 2, 1. Oh, Brute Strength. Instant, 1 and a red. Target creature gets +3/+1 and gains trample until the end of the turn. This is a combat trick. Prime, I mean, not much to talk about. It's an okay combat trick.
It's pretty good, honestly. The +3/+1 is nice. This is kind of a regular in core sets. If not this literal card, or this same card, a card like it. I think there was a better card printed in Theros that everyone used that was +3/+1, and you got to scry, and it was 1 red. So
yeah,
certainly outclassed in terms of like legacy playability. Not the format, just the eternal formats.
Yeah.
But that being said, combat tricks aren't really good outside of standard and limited. And standard is a very like small margin, I think.
Yeah, I think most recently, like where combat tricks in an actual constructed deck have done relatively well is when you look at something like the feather decks that were running around standard for a while and things like that. And the reason being, you could recur a lot of that value. We do still see it in Historic, to kind of relate it to what we're talking about a little bit today, actually. In Historic, we do see it occasionally, not this card, but combat tricks kind of pop up in young Pyromancer style decks, where you can gain a little bit of extra value. Anything you can do to gain it value in a deck like that is fine. But you generally try and keep those at 1 mana so you can cycle off as many of those as possible. And really, sure. and truly, you'd be looking more for like cantrips than necessarily combat tricks. But regardless, I mean, this is your standard limited, combat trick. You probably would take it if you were in that color and you find yourself late in the pack, and is a perfectly fine pickup. You probably don't want too many of them in your deck, but they're not bad.
No, and they're a weird spot, like when you're drafting. If you think about the bread analogy, where do they really fit? You could call them drag, I guess.
Yeah.
But they are a little bit more useful than like an expensive creature that's not very valuable.
Sure.
Or some like vanilla creature. Not that I would rank these higher than like bears when I'm drafting necessarily. They can add value to the rest of your decks. So I think like after your first pack, I think you can start looking at these to kind of slot into your sideboard, maybe.
Yeah.
To always have, if you're short on cards deck building, fine limited. I like them.
I like them.
I'll pick them up.
I find myself. Yeah, I think you can pick them up relatively late, so it's fine. Hey, we got a subscriber. Ace, appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so much for subscribing with your Prime sub.
Appreciate that.
We will be opening up a pack later. We'll dedicate it to you. Because normally we do open packs for everybody, but on the podcast episode we kind of changed that formula up a little bit. But yeah, these combat tricks work really really well when you've got a high capacity of very like low ground creatures, especially because you always have something to target with it.
Right.
There are certain strategies in draft where these combat tricks really do not land quite as well, but thankfully it is very creature heavy generally, so it tends to work out pretty well. But other than that, wow, I can't talk. There's not too much to say about it, so let's
Yeah.
let's jump on back. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Let's talk Kaladesh. Kaladesh Remastered did officially drop on Thursday of last week. That was the 12th of November. And some of the things that we're going to talk about today are kind of the suspects we think are going to be the here's the constructive value that Historic just got, and what kinds of decks we're going to be seeing, and if this really overall kind of shakes up the meta as a whole. I do think there are some things that are definitely going to be shaking things up a good bit, and I'm excited to talk about those. But Forgotten Hunter, welcome. Hi, Minecraft dude. Hi. But the big elephant in the room we can kind of get out of the way first, I think, because everybody kind of expected this to be the big card. Aetherworks Marvel.
Yep.
We're already seeing it make waves in Historic. I don't know if many of you guys have been playing much on the Historic ladder. I know I've been up against a variety of Aetherworks Marvel decks. Some kind of the classic teamer energy focus kind of thing. Some of them Simic, because Simic kind of gets away with it in Historic. And the Aetherworks Marvel is there to pull out the Ugins and the Ulamogs and the really, really big game-ending kind of cards, as it always has been. And it's working great, to be honest. It's a very solid deck. If anything, it's got more tools now than ever. And
Right.
so I mean, I think it works in Historic. I know, you look at a format like Modern, for comparison's sake, it's not quick enough for Modern. Aetherworks Marvel can do very powerful things, but it's not fast enough to keep up with the turn 4-ish kind of format, or turn 3 or turn 4 format that Modern really is. And so it's interesting to see it in Historic, where it's actually successful already on some level, to the point where, it's clearly going to be able to do its thing. And if it drops that Aetherworks Marvel, you're pretty done.
I mean, they have to get it off, right, and hit.
Yes, I find it very easy for them to get the energy they need to just go off with it the turn they drop it. Specifically, sorry.
That's the game, right? Managing their energy.
Yeah.
And kind of forcing them to use it elsewhere, or making sure that they don't have it in the first place, and that's a tall task.
Yeah.
Although, there are some better spells in Historic that can deal with artifacts that you can sideboard that can kind of save your butt, I'd say.
Yeah.
Not that it's not a powerful deck. I mean, it took over Standard. We know that.
Yeah.
It's going to be an issue. Anytime you get to cheat cards, no matter what colors you are in, that's always a strong tool to have, I guess. So.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think in particular, now that this is in Historic and not just kind of a standard legal deck, is that there are so many really good options. I mean, I mentioned Ulamog and Ugin. Those are, I would argue, probably the best two. But the fact that you can get an Ulamog or an Ugin is ridiculous, because no matter what, you have the answer, if that makes sense. If they've only got a couple permanents out, get yourself that Ulamog, wipe those things off the board, and you're good to go. If they've got a widespread board and they were really trying to kind of pull that go wide strategy on you, elves, something like that, just pull out your Ugin, sweep, and you're good to go. It
Right.
gives you those toolbox kind of options a little bit more than that standard variation did back in the day, because it just didn't have all the options that we have in Historic. So I'm curious to see more different, like, just variety builds of Aetherworks Marvel. I do think, the classic teamer standard look is perfectly fine. I think it works great. It definitely has the most kind of early game play because it gets attuned with Aether, but it also gets Harness Lightning, some interaction on the board, so that way you can kind of deal with some of those low ground creatures. And in general, it's just a really nice, smooth deck. But like I said, there are a couple different variations, so I'm interested to see where that actually lands as the best color combo. Um,
For sure. So it's going to be a tough deck, I think, no matter what color it's in, to really tool to beat. I mean, because they didn't do anything to make it weaker, I think, in reprinting all the stuff. Uh, the big cards, we talked about this years ago in the podcast. The big cards that make it work are the cards that a good mid-range deck would just put into its deck anyway.
yeah.
Whirler Virtuoso, Rogue Refiner, these cards that add value and are like decent threats on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Control decks are going to be best suited to beat it because they can control more so what hits the board and when.
Yeah.
And most of how they're gaining their energy is on the stack. So, what I mean is when you can stop them is going to be on the stack because when things enter the battle, typically is when they gain the energy. Of course, Aetherworks has its own way to gain energy, so it's kind of its own engine in that. But like Kevin was saying, typically they're going to have it at or the next turn that they cast it. They're going to set something up.
Yeah.
So it's tricky. It's tricky. Anytime that they add another sort of element or resource to play with for players, those decks do pretty well.
Yeah.
So it'll be tough, but historic players don't lose hope. It's possible.
I think we have the tools to deal with it, so I am excited. And I think to your point, the control decks, I think I agree with you there, definitely have the best opportunity at dealing with it. Really quick before we move on to control decks, because I've got a couple cards I want to talk about there. Just a quick reminder, if anybody has any questions during any of this, please feel free to leave them in the chat. We will talk about them. If they're quick and easy, we'll kind of answer them on the fly. If we can't, we'll talk about them later on when we do kind of that portion of everything. But speaking on to the control deck and kind of moving on to some other cards, there are two actually that really kind of stand out to me in terms of control pieces. The first is a little less exciting, but I think it is a good card. Disallow is kind of our new counter spell in Historic. Also can counter specific abilities, which is great. It's a really clean answer to a lot of things, and so having a Disallow available to you is always a good thing. The other one that I want to talk about that's a little more heavy hitting is absolutely Torrential Gearhulk. Torrential Gearhulk is here, and it's amazing. I love it. I think it's such a good control piece.
Were you waiting for me to add?
Yes, I was. That was a pass off.
Huh! Torrential Gearhulk. What? Torrential Gearhulk is dope.
Yeah.
It is fat Snapcaster. Done.
Yeah, that's it. It's just a really powerful card. It adds a really nice element to a control deck where not only does it get reusable value from a spell, but it also is just a big, nice beater, so it can help finish that game if you need it to. Ace is saying, what's our sleeper card that people aren't talking enough about in Commander Legends? We'll talk about that later. We'll stay with Kaladesh for now, but we will talk there. I actually don't know, though. Do what?
I think there's plenty of candidates.
Oh, okay. Good.
The set's jam-packed.
Yeah, there's a
we
lot.
We can talk about that for a while.
Yeah. We'll get there. So moving on to, I actually want to talk about a couple of uncommons. So you did kind of mention some for the energy list. We kind of threw them out there. Harness Lightning is there. Rogue Refiner. Things like that are out there. Some that, one in particular that I think kind of shakes up the meta as a whole, just because it's very lucrative and flexible for a lot of decks, is just Fatal Push. This is kind of an obvious one. Fatal Push being printed just gives us cheaper removal. And that just makes it a little bit easier to deal with a lot of different stuff. And so For you aggro decks out there, you're going to be running up against a lot of fatal pushes, so just be careful when you're doing that. I do think fatal push is just going to be the new norm in terms of any black deck is going to be running it if they're trying to have any removal at all. So just be very, very aware of those things. The other one I wanted to talk about, hey Alex, good to see you. The other one I wanted to talk about was Winding Constrictor, which again was a pretty big standard card at the time. It, I think, is in a much better place now, and I really like the list that I was able to pull. This was a suggestion from Matt Nass from Channel Fireball. He suggested an Abzan counters list, and what that consisted of in particular were Winding Constrictors and Conclave Mentors, which essentially do a very similar thing, and just bolster up every counter that you're placing on the field. And like, I gotta be honest, I played that deck, and some of you guys were there. Minecraft Dude Hunter, I think you guys might have been there. We played, I think it was close to like 10 to 12 games. It was something like that. I lost 2. Which is a pretty good record, especially for someone like me who is not by any means the best player in the world. Like, that deck is just consistently good. I found it to be really, really good against a variety of lists. I think it powered up so quickly, it was difficult for the aggro decks to truly deal with it. It also had a little bit of a reaction kind of stuff with Voracious Hydras, because you were able to kind of fight stuff away. And like, it was such a good, solid, it felt more like a mid-range list, but it was able to do exactly what you needed it to do every single time. Really, really
Nice.
stoked about that list. Lots to get excited about with that card.
Well, cool. Yeah, Abzan is, anytime Abzan is good, I feel like it's a healthy time for that meta. Because Abzan decks are typically, like, when I think of fair decks, quote unquote, they're the most fair. Because they don't usually do anything tricky. I mean, they just beat you with valuable creatures and like spot removal.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it in my mind. Like, Siege Rhino is probably, if we want to talk about Abzan, the best Abzan mid-range card that's ever been printed.
I think I would agree, yeah.
No, I love those colors. Abzan decks are fun.
Yeah, for sure.
They feel good when they work. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And the season, right before Kaladesh was printed, Abzan was really strong.
Yeah, that was Dragons of Tarkir and all that stuff.
Yeah, right around then. Reed and a couple other players took it to the top 8.
Yep.
Of their pro tours that season. So
of course Reed did.
Yeah, of course. That's what he's best at.
He's so good with mid-range stuff. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I think Abzan as a whole is a very fair deck most of the time. And I think it is just a very straightforward strategy. And I think anytime, like you said, that we can get a good Abzan list and it just generally does okay, it's like, okay, cool. I think it's really good. Let's see. To be on podcast stop, I actually got into CEDH during Kaladesh. Did you really, Alex? I didn't know that. I thought you'd been in it way longer than that. Anyway.
Kaladesh was like 4 years ago?
Yeah. Well,
3 or 4.
Yeah, it was a little while ago.
Right.
Will, what cards are you thinking about? What cards are you wanting to talk about? Or what decks are you wanting to talk about?
Well, we'll talk about, I think, out of this set for limited stuff, there's a bunch of hits to draft. Obviously, any Gear Hulk is great. I think sleepers that people don't look at all the time, Glint Sleeve Siphoner is awesome. Yes. Pulling those in limited feels really good, along with Gifted Aetherborn. Anything with Death Touch in limited, A+.
Yep.
That's a very tricky ability to get around. And it's got lifelink, people. Come on. There's, sort of your typical limited archetypes in here, I think. So we can't talk too much about it. I mean, it's all been done before, right?
Yeah, the
Like,
one thing to think about with the limited aspect is that we've been here before. We know how this works. We have a selection of the cards from this block, so it's not everything. It's kind of a culmination of a bunch of things in one. But a lot of those things
yeah,
have been there before, and so this isn't truly like a new set for us to really, jump too heavily into the limited aspect of it. I think the biggest thing is definitely historics hits and like where that's going to shake things up. Um, just in general,
sure.
I think more is going to be happening there. But I will say,
Oh, most definitely.
one of the jankiest cards that I absolutely love is Paradox Engine. I'm so glad we got Paradox Engine in.
Proxy, it's Gonti.
Do what?
That's your favorite. Alex said his favorite card is
Oh
from
yeah,
Kaladesh.
it's
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 Gonti,
it is Gonti.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
he loves
I
Gonti.
thought so. It's fun.
So
Gonti's
good.
fun.
Um, Yeah, Alex, so to that point, the big artifacts are going to shake up historic. I think you're right. I think the fun thing, and we played this deck, I think, on Thursday. I think it was the day it released. We played a big artifacts deck, and it was awesome. It was really fun. Didn't win all that well. Like, I mean, not all that consistently, I should say. But the beauty of it was that because it's in historic, we've got tons of mana rocks there. Like we've got the Mind Stone, we've got the little shard that like duplicates, and like tons of different things that essentially just tap for a ton of mana. You then play Paradox Engine, play another one, and then you just keep untapping and keep doing your thing. And it worked pretty well. Like you could essentially Aetherworks Reservoir or whatever it is, Aetherflux Reservoir, and then just nuke them for 50, and it worked pretty reliably.
Huh.
It wasn't like perfect, but it worked most of the time. It was really good.
Nice.
Yeah, dude.
That's fun.
It was really fun. And we have Karn the Great Creator that can pull a lot of those pieces out of your
Right.
sideboard. And that is pretty key. The fact that you can just pull whatever you need is ridiculous.
That's awesome. Those are fun decks to play. I think that's like another level of talent, I would say, to be able to pilot a toolbox deck well.
Yeah.
Uh, Not that I'm trying to discourage anyone, do it. They're cool decks. Aetherworks Reservoir, what a fun card, right?
Oh, yeah. It's the Death Star, man. It's great.
Yeah. It's dope.
I'm so glad they included that. I think that's such a fun
Oh,
card.
yeah, they had. I mean, if you're gonna build a jank set or a jank deck out of the pool of historic cards, I think your top three should include Reservoir.
Yeah, for sure.
Personally,
Dude, okay, so let me tell you about this deck I played, or I tried to play today. Um, so it was a Paradox engine, and the same thing. It was Aetherflux Reservoir was the win, but it was in an Elves build. So the idea was that you played all of the elves, essentially taking the place of the mana rocks. You had Beast Whisper, which allowed you every time to play a creature that you were able to draw a card. So essentially, every time you would play a creature, you would tap all your mana, play that creature for obviously less mana. You would net so much, draw a card, and then be able to play whatever you drew off the top of your deck. And then ideally, that kind of chains, and you get to keep going. It was pretty fun. It did not work at all. And what
no.
so what I learned about the meta this morning is that the meta is pretty fast in comparison to what that deck was trying to do. And so while it was fun to give it a shot, I think we are kind of in a very, I will say, a relatively fast meta game right now. I think a lot of the decks are kind of focused on some aggro-y kind of things. There was one deck that like turn 2 was able to equip a Colossus Hammer to a like 1/1 haster and was able to just beat face for 2 turns and win. Like there are things like that out there that make it a little bit tricky for slower decks to really gain some advantage.
Okay.
So like I would say as a word of caution to anybody playing historic right now, just keep in mind that you are going to need to find ways to deal with a lot of the faster decks in the format right now.
Yeah.
And Alex, to your point, yes, that's exactly right. The Kaladesh at that time did make a lot of things a lot faster. So I'm with you there. Uh, yeah, it did make a new vintage deck, Paradoxical Outcome, which is in the release, but obviously not near as good in historic.
Yeah, not in historic. Historic's a weird set for me, where you feel like you want to do so much more with it, but it doesn't really get to work. So I don't know.
No, I'm with you there. Like it, you're like very close on a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? Like I think if we had cheaper mana rocks, like a few just really dirt cheap mana rocks, we could make Paradoxical Outcome work. But like we've got a couple 2 mana rocks, but they're not the best. I mean, Mind Stone's good. The other one is the little like that it turns into a 2/2, but it comes into play tapped, so like you can't use it the turn it comes out.
Right.
There's like a bunch of little things like that and like nuances that kind of nuke a lot of the creative ideas, I guess I would say. Um, so I'm with you though. I think historic is fun, but it's definitely slightly slower than like modern fun, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Uh,
Which is good. It's
modern,
supposed to be.
yeah, and that's fine. They need to. The formats can't all feel like each other, really, and that's fine. Um, so I can't complain about it too much. I've not played a historic game, so I've watched plenty because Magic is Magic, but you know, I don't know that I would play it.
Nah, I feel you.
But
I mean, I play it a fair amount. I haven't played it much recently up until Kaladesh's release because I kind of got like on a standard binge with Zendikar Rising.
Standard
But
is more fun to me than historic, honestly.
I will say right now I really enjoy standard. I think there's a lot of fun things you can do and there's a nice variety, which is fun. Historic, I will say though, still feels pretty kind of widespread. Like you run into a fair number of different decks when you play like on just the best of one ladder or wherever. Like, and I think that still lends itself to be a fun format. So I think it's not been like broken yet, if that makes sense. Um,
Definitely. Good. I'd say that that's probably a good sign.
oh, for sure. I don't feel like absolutely worried about Kaladesh Remastered breaking the format somehow. Like I don't feel like that's a worry necessarily. I think we've got some really good cards that were just printed, and some.
Even even with Aetherworks in there.
I don't think Aetherworks breaks it. I think it's very very good. Um, However, I think there are plenty of options to deal with it. Um,
Okay.
And so I'm not necessarily worried that Aetherworks Marvel is going to take over. And the reality of it is there are just faster decks than Aetherworks Marvel out there right now. They're not as consistent, most likely, but they can win on crazy early turns if they really want to. I mean, I talked about the Colossus Hammer deck. It's a bit of a janky deck, but like it can work and you can win on turn 2 or 3 if you get it right. Like there are ways that happens. Um, and so there are faster things out there that will challenge Aetherworks Marvel enough, I think, that make it
Okay.
not quite as overpowering.
Well, that's cool. I really had in my mind that either it would be a sideboard tech answer
Mm,
or control decks would just outright beat it. Um,
yeah.
but I a lot of the time I'm trying to think back to what beat it in standard pretty consistently. Um, and while I don't remember all the numbers off the top of my head, but if I'm in the ballpark, I think it didn't have the highest win rate even in the meta at the time.
Did
Is
it
that
not?
right?
I thought it
I
did.
don't. It was. I think it was tied for highest because it was at like just under 50%. It was like 48,
Mm,
47. It hovered around there the week of its banning.
yeah.
Um, because again, the reason they banned the card wasn't because it was outright broken. It's because it wasn't fun to play against.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it really destroyed the game aspect of Magic. Like because the deck, while it's a fine deck on its own, everything is like everything in it is answered up until the point that they try to crack their Aetherworks.
Yeah.
Uh, and the best decks if they didn't hit their what was it, Ulamog back then,
Yeah.
they like just played some constellation card and they got a good turn out of it.
Yeah.
But most decks could come back and beat it if they didn't hit their game winner. The best Aetherworks decks had enough other like energy re-ups that they could crack their Aetherworks a second time without it being answered. But the Aetherworks decks that didn't get to flip it and spit out a giant thing just lost most of the time.
Yeah.
So the card in and of itself is a gambit. Now, I think you're exactly right when you say it's historic is probably the strongest you would see Aetherworks Marvel at.
Yeah.
And let me look really quick because I know that an energy deck went around Modern for a while and did okay. I don't believe it was ever banned in Modern. I think it just got banned in Standard.
Yeah.
So that kind of speaks to like you being able to beat it.
Sure.
Let's see, sets and legality. Let's check here. Yeah, so it's legal. It's legal in Modern and Pioneer. So if you really think about it, it's in Eternal formats. It's probably not going to be earth-shattering. I think you're exactly right.
Yeah.
After careful consideration, that's really big to me. It being legal in Pioneer, I think, is a big tell that it's probably going to be fine in Historic. Yeah. There's even juicier stuff in Pioneer.
Yeah, so, for sure.
So
cool. No, I'm with you. I just don't think it's going to take over. I think it'll be very good, and I think it'll be competitive. I just don't think it's going to take over.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm happy about. I think it just adds a new deck. Like, nothing wrong with that.
We can also say really quick, this is probably a good time for Planeswalkers.
Yeah.
In Historic, Oath of Ajani is a huge card to put in that card pool, as well as, what is it, Heart of Kieran? Is that the one that you can crew?
Yes. I believe
so. You can crew it. It's a 2-mana vehicle that's a 4/4 with flying and vigilance, and you can crew it with a Planeswalker's, like one of their loyalty counters.
Yes, that is correct.
So that's a very cheap threat to have in some sort of Planeswalker deck. Oath of Ajani, of course, making everything cheaper. It's probably just a fun time to experiment with whatever is in Historic. And you got just a handful of them here. You got the big Nissa. I think that's probably the best Nissa.
The War of the Spark one is very good.
Is that the one? But this is the. Let me try to remember what War of the Spark one does. Because this add mana and flip your top card. If it doesn't work, it deals 2. Or you can deal 4 outright. This Chandra is very good.
I'm looking at this. So you're talking about the Kaladesh Remastered Nissa?
Yeah.
Vital Force?
Is that her name?
That's her name. So +1, untap target land you control until your next turn.
I said Nissa, my bad. I meant Chandra. Might be.
Oh. I was about to be like, what? Yeah, this is the best Chandra. Torch of Defiance is sick.
In the face, and I said Nissa.
It's okay. Yeah, Torch of Defiance is sick. Like, very, very good card for a variety of decks, but red just got a whole lot scarier with that.
Oh, yeah. This card was awesome. I think I put her in the blue-red control deck I played at the time.
You did. I remember going to an F&M and playing with that.
That was a fun night. It was a fun
night. I was playing Golgari, or was it Golgari? I think it was Golgari Energy because it was after Aetherworks had been banned.
Yes, it was the week right after, and I got it in one of the packs.
Yeah,
which was awesome. But yeah, she's a solid card. So Planeswalkers right now probably pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got a bunch honestly in this set. Tezzeret, the Schemer, Saheeli's in here. That other Ajani, what's his name? Unyielding is in here.
Mm-hmm.
Dovin. I mean, that's not.
There's some decent ones in here, yeah. Worth noting really quick on the Saheeli note, Felidar Guardian is not in this set. They just went ahead and nixed that idea. I guess.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, you don't want to make Splinter Twin a thing.
no. So just a heads up, if you don't hear us talking much about it, that's why we're not talking about it. There's not a need to. Um,
Oh,
yeah, that was a bad time in everybody's life.
yeah, it's just a big oops sandwich.
A big oops sandwich.
Yeah, no one meant to. That was a shit sandwich.
That was
No
pretty
one
bad,
meant
yeah.
to do that.
No.
Allegedly. So.
Allegedly. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, there's a lot in here. One other thing I did want to mention, and if I just want to make sure that I'm getting this correct. Let me find it. Is Beaumat Courier? Yeah, Beaumat Courier.
Mm.
Mono Red loves them some Beaumat Courier. So for you aggro players out there, I mean, we talked about Chandra Torch of Defiance being a really good top end for red decks, but Beaumat Courier is a really, really convenient turn one play. So
Yep.
if you find yourself just wanting to play some mono red, make sure you throw in some Beaumat Couriers because it's freaking good.
Yeah, Beaumat Courier is solid.
Yeah.
It's honestly probably even a card that you hold on to a little bit later if you're in red. Here's why. Since it's activated ability, you can just place in front of a kill spell.
Yeah.
On the deck, or in the face of a block. It feels awesome to have like two kind of cards in your hand that you just get to pitch and draw whatever it is, 2, 3, whatever you've stacked under Beaumat Courier and just refuel. And they've had to answer it either by blocking it or trying to shock it or something.
Yeah.
And that it kills it technically, but it fizzles and you just get card advantage off of it. Beaumat Courier was one of my favorite cards from the set.
Yeah.
So it's a very cool card.
And worth noting too, there is a little interesting interaction with Beaumat Courier. Now, this is a very specific scenario, but I think this is really fun. And this happens, I don't think not everybody realizes this when you do it, and I think it's funny. So this happens a lot with Brazen Borrower and Bone Crusher Giant, where the opponent tries to target, bounce a thing or shock a thing with either one of those two cards, okay? In response, you would sacrifice, use the Beaumat Courier's ability, sacrifice it, do its thing. The interesting thing that happens that for whatever reason I have found a lot of people don't know is that that card now fizzles, which means you don't get to play the Bone Crusher Giant side of that card ever. It goes to your graveyard completely. It doesn't hit the adventure zone. It doesn't do any of that stuff. I have found for some reason a lot of people don't know that.
Are you saying if those adventure cards target the Beaumat Courier?
Yeah, and you sack it in response.
Cool. Yeah.
So I'm just saying that for some reason I've done that, not with Beaumat Courier, but with other things. I've done that, like that same scenario has happened a lot. And people always put the little oops in there and are like, oh crap, forgot, and it's like, obvious, like, duh. Like, it fizzles, it's gone.
Yeah, that's a fun, like, one-up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
On your opponent. That's a cool time.
It feels good. The last kind of cycle of cards that I really wanted to mention here isn't a surprise to anybody, but it's kind of just lands in general. The new enemy fast lands are fantastic for a lot of reasons. Obviously, it's new fixing opportunity, which just makes more and more things playable. So when you're looking to do, your 3-color Abzan deck or your 4-color whatever, it's a lot easier to make that happen now. We obviously already have Shocklands in. We've got a lot of nice little fixing pieces, but there's just a very nice, smooth addition to that. Inventor's Sphere is also good for your artifact-heavy decks. Really excited about that. Spire of Industry is also, I think, quite good for artifact-focused decks with just a splash of color. But overall, great lands to add to Historic.
Yeah, very cool. Kaladesh, I think most people remember more for its flaws.
Yeah.
But I would say that it was a really fun set to play.
Oh, sure.
We didn't even talk about Scrappy Scrounger, but
no.
There's a heap of, I think, great cards that came out of the set.
Yes.
And it might have my favorite art in all of Magic.
That's a statement.
Are you it's so intricate.
Oh, it
All of
is.
all of these cards on their own could be like murals. I mean, look at Sky Whaler Shot, for example, is amazing.
Yeah.
Like incredible color with the sky, the dynamic just whale fucking popping out of the clouds. Insane. Yeah,
It does
using
have
art.
very good art. It's not my favorite personally, but it is very good.
I think the detail and the just very I don't know what the word would be, but the blues to me are very deep. Like anything in Brawl's expertise, Brawl himself.
Yeah.
They're very cool. The detail in it is, I think, like untouched for Magic.
Fair enough.
It's awesome.
It is very good. There's no doubt about that. They have a lot of really nice kind of swirl motifs through a lot of things, which I really like.
Yeah.
I think they kept it very consistent, which is great. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm with you. I think it's very good. It's definitely not
That's,
my favorite, but it is very good.
that's one of the other things I like about it is that every card out of here, you would look at it and go, if it was just a blank card, you didn't get the name, you didn't get the set symbol or anything, you would know, oh, that's a Kaladesh card.
That's
100%.
true. That is definitely true. I'm with you there.
I think. What do you think would be better?
Uh, I'm not saying it's better. I'm saying I have a different favorite. To be
Or what do
clear,
you like?
I
What do you like more?
really like the art from and it's because of the like cityscapes and stuff like that. But in Ravnica,
Sure. I think
um,
the lands were gorgeous. There's a forest in particular I'm thinking of that
mm-hmm.
honestly like made me fall in love with green as the color. Before that, there was really nothing that like attracted me to green,
Yeah.
but I just got like all of these forests um, to put in a deck I was playing. Uh, it was amazing,
Yeah.
and it was in return for Ravnica.
I liked, yeah, all of the Ravnica sets have had very good art, in my opinion. But I think also it's the attention to detail in a lot of the Ravnica sets that made it so kind of stand out to me. Um, just the like way that they did the different factions or the guilds and like the things like that. It's just very
Oh,
cool.
oh, Ravnica as a plane is my favorite, like
Yeah, yeah, definitely,
no doubt.
definitely.
But yeah, it was. I'm trying to find this forest.
And when I say it's my favorite, it's a lot of nostalgia too, because I did play a bit during OG Ravnica, and that's always my favorite, go-to set.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like coolest set Ravnica, hands down. Coolest setting Ravnica.
Yeah.
Not cool. Sorry, coolest setting.
Mm,
Uh, I don't think it gets any better than Ravnica. It's very sweet.
I agree.
But yeah, Kalash's art is just chef's kiss. Perfect in every way.
It's great. Well, really quick, first of all, Will, is there anything else you wanted to mention with Kaladesh Remastered?
Um, only I think I don't know if I finished my point, but only to uh bring it back. Kaladesh was really fun, and I think it's nice having it back in relevancy, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
It's just cool to see it again. It was a fun time.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. 100%.
Ixalan coolest setting.
I didn't like
Uh,
Ixalan like at all.
I think it was pretty cool. I'm gonna be honest, the dinosaurs were a bit much for me, but I think it was pretty cool.
I
Like
found it
it was
kind of gimmicky. Not gimmicky in that it's like something that's been done before. I don't know of anything that's been done like that before, but I just didn't really like. I don't know. It was just like a culmination of so many random things. I was like, okay, whatever. I mean, it was fine. I enjoyed the set. It's definitely not my favorite.
I think it was a really cool talking about the setting wise, not card wise. Yeah. Yeah, for the setting, I think it was fine. The dinosaurs were a stretch,
Yeah.
but it was King Kong meets Pirates of the Caribbean meets Indiana Jones. And those are all like
Good things.
beloved stories, right?
Yeah.
You had monsters, like evil vampires looking for treasure, and there were pirates there, and um, there was a dinosaur or two. So it was
Well,
neat. It's fine.
yeah, it was fine. Well, really quick, to open this up to chat, if there's anything else that you want to talk about with Kaladesh Remastered, please let us know. If there's any questions, please let us know. Ace did ask a question earlier about the sleeper cards in Commander Legends. Will, while I open up this mystery booster pack, why
Sure.
don't you talk about that a little bit?
So I have two that I think are my like favorite for quote unquote sleepers, and they're not going to be like necessarily game breaking or astounding. I just think that they're very solid cards that can fit into Commander for a while. Rakash, I can never say it. Rakshasa Debaser is a fun one. Anytime you get to reanimate your opponent's creatures, it's sweet. The fact that you can do it twice if you activate its Encore is also awesome. That's a really fun card. It is reliant on, your opponent's playing good creatures, but that being said, it's a dope card. And also you can only reanimate creatures from the player you attacked. So it's limited, but I think that could be a big card if you get to sneak some combat phases in. The second one is I don't think is really a shock. Like the effects aren't new to Commander at all, but Wheel of Misfortune is fun.
Yeah.
It's wheel effects are usually a big speed bump for a lot of players that aren't expecting it and don't have a way to get around it or like a plan B. And they're just a cool way to shake up the game. I think wheels are interesting cards, definitely. So that I think is going to be a good one. But this set is chock full of them. I mean, you could talk about Kodama. You could talk about what are some others? Austere Command being like a sneaky sorcery that could like turn games around is just like you must have this in white decks sort of thing. I don't know. Yeah, there's this guys. This set is fucking bonkers. Just buy this set. All right, the Court Cycle, all of them are awesome. Court of Bounty is broken. Like I don't. There's almost too much to bite off in just what's a sleeper card. Everything in this is going to be good. That's hyperbole. For legal reasons, that's a joke, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, Will, I don't know if you watched. We opened 2 boxes of it on the channel late last week. Dude, the first box that I opened was ridiculous.
Some great pulls.
So insane.
Yeah.
And really quick, speaking of pulls, and we did open a mystery pack here. Not a whole lot of exciting stuff in this pack, to be honest. I do have 3 options for you. I'm gonna lay them out for you, Will. Okay, you're gonna pick.
All right.
I got a common, I got an uncommon, and I've got the rare. All right.
Are these like pickable cards? You're saying?
Yes,
pick?
they are pickable cards in my opinion. We'll go common first. Bombard, 2 and a red. Instant, deals 4 damage to target creature, just a nice solid removal spell. We've got Selesnya Gill Mage. 2/2 for 2, 3 and a green, create a 1/1, 3 and a white, creatures you control get +1/+1.
Fine card.
I think that's better than Bombard, generally.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
The rare is Sudden Demise, which is X and a red. For a sorcery, choose a color. Sudden Demise deals X damage to each creature of the chosen color.
You take the sweeper.
All right.
I mean,
there it is, folks. We take the sweeper.
Removal is your second most valuable kind of card you can take. If you can take more than one, fantastic. Yeah. I think that's.
I think it was between that and the Gill Mage. I could buy an argument for the Gill Mage for sure.
I could as well.
I really like token generators that can sit there and just be a mana sink for you are generally pretty.
Oh, hey, that's the hybrid one, isn't it?
Yes. Which makes it way easier to play. Yeah, I think there's a world where you probably take that above Sudden Demise. That being said, I think you could take either one and be perfectly happy.
I'm starting to rethink it. I was thinking of the
new one.
Uh,
Some Conclave. It was from Return or something like that, or the newest.
Yeah, the Gill Mages were original Ravnica, weren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a pretty good card. The Gill Mage might be it, actually, honestly. Um,
It's very
getting
good.
Yeah, pumping your board is I mean incredible in limited.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one. I don't think you can go wrong there with either of those.
I don't think you can either. I think one's more proactive, one's more reactive. I think it kind of depends on your play style, which you tend to take. I
Yeah.
would tend to lean more towards the Guild Mage, I think, for myself, but that's just me. I got you. Thanks for following. I appreciate it. But yeah, I really like the Guild Mage. I think I would take it. Sudden Demise is also very good, like, no doubt. There's a world, though, where there's a big downside to Sudden Demise.
Right. When you share colors and to
Yeah,
kill yours.
exactly.
Definitely. Yeah, that's what gave me pause. Like sweepers in limited are almost always you take them no matter what, but
Yeah.
that's a tricky one. Especially in that they're not going to sweep everything. So
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, if there's no questions, then technically we're at the end of the episode. Will, is there anything that you would like to mention before we head out for the evening?
anything I would like to mention? Sorry,
What was that?
my baby monitor.
Oh, how's Amelia?
She's good, man. She's so funny.
She's a sweetheart.
She so
You froze.
and I put on football while I was getting dinner ready.
Yeah.
And she had been playing a little bit, wasn't super interested, but she was kind of watching it. And as soon as I opened the oven and got the chicken tendies out, I was like listening to the game and I was listening for this big play to happen. And then it was just silent. I was like, what? And Amelia's standing in the living room with a remote and she says, bye bye football, eat time, eat time.
Oh my
Because that's
gosh.
what we always say. We say bye bye whatever we're watching and turn off the TV. But she was like, she always kind of fights turning off anything else, but she was like, all right, no, we're done with this garbage. Next.
That's
Give me that
so
chick.
cute.
She's hilarious.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I miss her.
Hey, she's a fun kid.
Yeah.
She's one of those babies that tricks you into having a million. So gotta be careful.
Yeah. Caitlin and I don't have any yet, so we're waiting.
No, you don't rush kids, man.
No.
Help it. You don't do that.
We're gonna shoot for getting married first.
Yeah. Check plus. This might be. Hold on. What is this? I was Googling that for us, by the way, to try and send it to you. And because all the basic lands are numbered.
Yeah.
So
yeah. You can find it.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that one for us to let you know which one it is. Is it?
Well, really quick, I want to talk about two things, if I may.
I just found it also. It's 273, but proceed.
All right. First of all, I started Fun Fridays, and Fun Fridays are pretty fun because I don't play Magic for the day. So this past Friday, I played Hades. It got the least number of views I think that we have ever had in the last 2 years on any videos. But it was freaking fun.
I would want. Good. There's probably one video that got even less.
Oh, I'm sure there's.
I don't even know if it's on our channel. You probably did away with it, but I streamed StarCraft once. So.
Did I port it over to YouTube? I may not have.
Oh, I streamed it on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
I streamed it on YouTube.
Well, then it's probably still there. I don't know if I deleted it or not.
You should have. It was not great, but that being.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like doing something a little bit different. I've been playing Hades off of a fellow friend of ours, Zach. He kind of recommended it. And I did play Bastion, which is same developers and all that stuff. And I was like, this is really awesome. And so, you know what?
this is like a Diablo hack and slash style game, right?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like
it's got a theme.
yeah, it's like a dungeon crawl. You're like it's got a really nice theme and a really cool kind of premise to it all. I find it really fun. I think you would really enjoy it as just a fun like
Okay.
time killer kind of game. It's not very long or anything. It's just fun. So I recommend it. If anybody's listening, you can play it too. I think it's fun. But yeah, streamed that on Friday. Got very few views, but it was still a good time. I'm probably gonna keep doing kind of a fun Friday every once in a while, just because.
Nice.
Second though, I'm bringing up disc golf again. I bring this up a lot, I know, but Caitlin and I went out today, and
Yeah.
first of all, I could not be more proud of Caitlin. She's kicking butt. She like
Nice.
she's doing the thing that everybody does where they start to realize like, okay, I know I can do this. It's just a matter of I need to do XYZ, like whatever that might be. And her thing is she's getting the stance down, she's getting the run down, like she's getting it down. The only thing that keeps happening, and it's just a matter of slowing down, I think, is that she raises the disc up and kind of throws it upwards a little bit every single time. And so it's catching
Yeah.
that air and then sticking back. And
So
so we've like talked about it. We went out and played today. We had a fantastic time. She did really well. And
nice.
it was really just a fun time. And we ended up on the last hole instead of like, we did play it through, but then we kind of reversed back to number one and just like kept throwing over and over every disc in our bag. um, and like I was practicing because I flick most of the time. I don't do the regular backhand throw. And so like I was practicing that and doing the run up and like kind of trying to get that down a little bit more. Um,
Yeah.
which I did get more distance out of it. I felt better about it, but it was still very like inconsistent. Like I hit the building at one point, like all kinds of stuff. But it
Where'd
was,
you go?
we went to, there's a local school, Dutchman Creek.
Oh yeah.
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 So we've been playing there just because it's convenient, because it's very close by for us. And so like her and I will go out there on the weekends and play. Um, and so I hit the school a couple times, but it was actually really fun.
You hit the school on hole one?
So hole one, you throw from, there's like a sidewalk that's right next to the building, like it's butted up against the building. So if building, sidewalk, okay, that's where the tee box is. So
Hold
you
on.
throw from there.
Oh, I'm thinking of Northwestern. My bad.
Oh,
My
no,
bad.
no, 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 no. Yeah, not Northwestern. And so I like, so you're throwing like this, and the hole is like down the hill a little bit away from the building, but not like that far. But I would backhand and grip lock, and it would just smack the shit out of the building. And like, that happened like twice. Um,
Yeah. That's
yeah.
gonna be a I don't know that I can help with grip lock at all, but uh nose up is pretty common, especially for new players.
Yeah.
So one piece of advice I think for both of you that anyone should give you is uh, film it, film yourself throwing it,
Good.
so that you can have you can see and reference like, okay, excuse me, okay, this looks weird.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to fix something like that. Gosh, excuse me. So that helped me a lot. That's how my brother learned what he was doing wrong.
Okay.
And how he like corrected me. The second thing is learning a really like smooth follow through
Yeah.
is very helpful. Not just with, I think a lot of people in disc golf talk about follow through, finishing with your left hand and where that goes is being super important. Not a lot of people talk about how following through with your throwing hand is important. So, because that really determines where your disc goes.
Okay.
Follow through with your throwing hand, not just your throwing hand. So, if you're throwing it, and if you want to release straight, and you want to think about, all right, my hand needs to finish like this. I need my hand to finish straight up, like back here. It needs to be flat. It needs to wherever it needs to be, you need to figure out at what point that is, because not a lot of people realize that. And this, I do this sometimes too, is when I'll throw, I'll like release, but my hand will be up like that,
Yeah.
and my disc will either go like too far to the right,
Yeah.
or those will be sticking up. So learning how to finish with your throwing hand, whichever one. Um, yeah, that's my rant for
Well,
on
good
that.
advice. I think we will take some of that advice because I've really been enjoying lately. I've been trying a lot of different discs, as I mentioned on the last episode.
Yeah.
I've kind of found some that I really love, and so I was practicing some different throwing for them. I did get a Rock 3, which I thought I would give a test run with today. Um,
Boxer,
oh,
solid.
dude, it's very reliably going the way I want it to go, which is awesome. Um, and
That's the
like
thing with Rock.
yeah, dude, like I know what to expect and I'm starting to learn just like okay, you know the four numbers on the disc and how they affect the flight pattern and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm kind of finally starting to truly grasp that and like how much that
Good.
is
Good.
like a tell for the disc, but not necessarily like it all depends on how you throw it still and all that kind of stuff. But like I'm
Right.
still kind of like I'm finally kind of getting the grasp of it. So like instead of just well, here's my driver, I'm going to throw my driver. I'm like, okay, I'm going to pick the driver that makes sense for what I'm trying to do instead of
Mm-hmm.
just, kind of willy nilly throwing whatever. And so I've learned a lot about that side of things that has helped a lot. And I practiced some of that today, which was great. I had to
Nice.
dude, I had this one shot and I was so stoked. It's like the seventh hole on this course and it does not have a marked tee box. Um, Not much talking, huh? Hunter, dude, we're just having a good time. It's all good. Um, Hunter's
Chat?
always
Nah.
nah. Chat's a little lazy tonight, and that's fine. We're just having a good old time. Um, so we don't have a tee box for this hole, so we just throw. It's like across the football field, and then a little bit further on. Hunter, yeah, you are the only one watching. Hi, how's it going?
Yeah,
We're here
we had
for you.
a couple minutes ago, but we're about to finish up.
Yeah,
So
we're finishing up. Um,
yeah,
So, okay, picture football field though, throwing short
yeah.
ways across it. There's a little like crop of bushes that pops out, and then the basket is kind of behind those bushes.
Okay.
So I'm on the far side of the field. I throw. I flick it. It lands. I threw a wraith, and it curved down to the right just a bit, and it smacked right behind where the bushes were. So I was
Okay.
like, I don't have a good sight line. I can't throw straight. I have nothing. So what I decided I did was I flicked it up, but at a very harsh angle. And is it Anheuser that goes to the right?
Yes.
Okay, so on an Anheuser angle, I threw really high up and curved to the right and landed 2 feet from the basket.
There you go.
I was like, oh
Nice.
shit. I was feeling good.
It's a cool feeling when you get something smooth to go off.
Yeah,
Like I remember one when I threw a putter for my upshot. It's just an ABR. It
yeah,
wasn't fancy,
yeah.
but and I was probably a good like 100 feet or so from the basket.
Yeah.
Uh, it was just meant to be an upshot, but I hit the top bar. That was like a pretty good fucking feel.
Oh,
Uh,
so we took my family out the other day to Northwestern. Um,
yeah, yeah. Your mom and your sister, right?
yeah, because they've been wanting to like kind of learn. They picked up their own Makos and like were playing with those because they didn't really understand the driver, and so I was like, okay, just go with a Mako, keep it simple.
You just
Um,
play one disc and play it for your first
yeah,
time. You don't need three even.
exactly. And so she actually, my mom especially, did really well. But on the shot 6, I think, where you're shooting straight down into the woods, not the first one where you shoot straight down, but the second one where you're shooting straight into the woods, I threw
Mhm.
it did a beautiful little S curve around a tree and it smacked the pole. Uh,
Dude,
and I was like, oh my gosh, I almost aced. I was like, that's the first time that's ever even been on the radar. Like I was like, that's amazing. So I felt pretty good about it, but it was a fun
very
time.
cool.
We need to go
Cool,
play
man.
again, Will. That's the takeaway.
We do. Yeah, yeah, for sure. One of these days,
Yeah,
free weekend we can go.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well, guys, I appreciate you everybody hanging out with us in chat today. Hunter, it looks like you are the only one left, but
We
we
should turn
appreciate
on
it.
right.
I hope you guys had a good time talking some Kaladesh this evening. If you do have any questions, please feel free to either leave them in chat or throw them over on the YouTube video, which will be up very soon. There's a little glitch. Oh no. Well, we're about to finish up. Either way, really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. But I think that is going to wrap up this episode. My name is Kevin.
My name is Will.
And this has been It Resolves. Resolving. Yeah. Woo. Go us. What?